Did you get everything you needed from me? The photos and the form? If you need anything else, just text or call me and I can get to it today.
Who's that?
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
May I have a thumbs up from anybody if you can see the screen?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, are we ready, Laura?
We're ready whenever you are.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
go ahead and get
Yeah,
started.
this is
Good
John.
morning, everybody.
I'm on, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, okay, thanks, John. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to week 11 of the legislative session, in which not much happened. Just a background, the House met on Wednesday for, I guess, about 30 minutes. They extended at least their session to June 30th. The Senate is still June the 6th because they haven't been here, and they weren't here this week, and they're not going to be here next week. So the budget talks are not going well. There had been an agreement to reduce the sales tax, the state sales tax, by 0.25% instead of 0.75%. But then the governor announced that he would veto any bill that contained a reduction in sales tax, and that's just a continuation of the spat between him and the speaker. So the Senate president said, well, we're not going to do sales tax, and the speaker got offended at that, made some remarks about the Senate president before the House adjourned on Wednesday. Again, the Senate wasn't here, so they haven't taken any action. That being said, I'll move to transportation because I still have the third bill down is House Bill 5501. That bill is dead, but that is the bill that contained the sweep of the trust fund. And rather than throw the whole budget at you, what there is of it so far, I wanted to, I'll just leave this up. But anyway, so with the current spat, if they don't do sales tax, that was the whole reason that the speaker had proposed the sweep of the various trust funds, including the transportation trust fund. So it's a little unclear right now because I think, the Senate president still wants property tax, or no, the governor still wants property tax reduction. The Senate president's more in line with doing non-recurring type budget reductions like sales tax, holidays, and those types of things. So they're still obviously very far apart, but so it's unclear right now. It depends on what they finally land on, but it's unclear if they're going to even try to do the trust fund sweeps, because if there's no sales tax reduction, again, that was the whole reason they were going to do that, was to help fund that. So we'll stay on top of that, and because that's really the only major issue we have left. The other two bills on the transportation report here, 1662 and 462, have both passed. They've been enrolled and just waiting for them to go to the governor for his signature. Or I don't see any problem with that. So those should be
Alan,
okay.
what discussions are surrounding around on the tax stuff right now is, we
Mhm.
still have a couple points left on the business rent tax. I think we're now the only state in the country that still has that tax. That's, that's $1 billion if they reduce it, or if they get rid of it. And there's talks about either cutting it in half or getting rid of it altogether. And there's also some discussions around the sales tax holidays and actually making them permanent. They pass them every year,
Right.
but they've got, they're only for 1 year. They're talking about, making those potentially permanent. That's something that the governor has wanted to do. He said it in a couple of his speeches that before he left office, he'd like to see those be, something that's permanently in our statute. So that's kind of what they're circled around right now, just for FYI. So.
Okay. So just to take that a little further, so the business rent tax would hit the state's budget for $1 billion. Do you think they're going to look to the trust funds to fund that?
No,
Or do you know?
they can sustain that, and I don't think the Senate has really pretty hard on not touching the transportation trust fund. So contrary to a lot of popular belief, they do have enough money to do some reductions. It's what the whole concern is about the out years. Is that they do believe there's going to be a slowing in the budget, especially about 3 years out, and that's what President Albritton is most concerned about. He just doesn't want to leave his successors with a big mess. That's why you know, that's what a lot of the tension's over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to hear. So the Senate's staying strong on the trust fund sweeps.
Right now they are, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. Did anybody have anything to add or any questions about the transportation segment? All right, Laura, let's move to the general bills. What I've got here are some of the bills we've been talking about, and then I added a few on that really didn't have anything in them that we were for or against. Really, it was just that they're in a subject area that, you know, we were watching them to make sure something didn't get amended in. But Senate Bill 110, that died in returning messages to the House. That was the bill that they had loaded in all the dereg stuff. I don't know. Last week we were having board meetings and planning sessions, so Derek covered. I'm not exactly sure where all that stood at that point, but you know, that's all dead. So the speaker has announced it himself that he's not going to seek the dereg and to abolish our licensing board and FEMIC. And so I guess we can just say we live to fight another day, because we'll probably see something next year. But so that one's dead. The water management districts had some language regarding getting bonds and touched on CCNA. That bill also died in returning messages. 658, the waiver or release of liens, that was passed by the Senate. It didn't contain the language that we didn't like that was in the House bill, but the House bill was never heard by any committees, and so 658 died in messages to the House. If you're catching a theme here, the House killed a lot of things. And when I went through my list that I created, you know, at the beginning of session, I had 84 bills on there, and there are very few of them that actually passed. So it's been a rough session for that. Wanted to put these in here, 913 and 393, as they deal with condos and get into the financing, the inspections, and all that kind of stuff. So both of those have passed. They don't touch the milestone inspections or the reserve study inspection. It's just more about how they get them paid for and penalties for, you know, not getting them done on time. But I think they're more to help, you know, the condo associations be able to afford what they need to do. Because as we all know, people are getting super high assessments. So I think this is to try to ease up on that a little bit. For those that are interested, you might want to look at the construction regulations. If you're interested in these bills, if you just click on that piece down there that says analysis, you can see a complete analysis of the bill. This bill has passed. I think the most important thing in there is that you can't penalize, or I think this is the one it's in. No, there's a bill that it says you can't penalize a firm for if they have a lot of work already ongoing, and you can't reward someone that doesn't have a whole lot of work going. So it's just kind of getting into the going back to the more merit-based kind of system is where this legislature was headed. And you know, they've taken a bunch of swipes at different things to do that. And this is one of those, if you're interested in that. And then the local government land regulation. For those that do that, you might have an interest. Let me pop this up real quick. So specifically what this bill does is it specifies what minimum information is required for certain zoning applications, provides time frames for the local governments to process an application, so that time their time frame is more limited now. The third thing is that they cannot limit the number of quasi-judicial hearings or public hearings for the same reason. That helps to speed it up. And then also issues refunds to applicants if they fail to meet certain time, if the government fails to meet certain timelines. So for those that are interested in that sort of thing, that bill's there for you. And again, the analysis is at the end. So are there any questions on that or any other bills that someone may have an interest in that you would like to talk about?
So Alan, this is JW. If I may.
Sure.
So the DOT Transportation Bill 1662 passed and is waiting on the governor. That does include the elimination of the disadvantaged business enterprise designation for state contracts and emphasizes the small business enterprise or BDI, Business Development Initiative, and it raises the ceiling from $6.5 million to $10 million in revenues for the firms. Got some guidance from FDOT because of the federal projects with federal funding do have an attached DBE requirement. So for any projects FDOT does that has federal funding, those requirements will still be in place. They're hoping to preserve the current aspirational goal rather than mandatory goal. They're waiting to see how the feds react to the state's move to do that. However, on projects that are state funded only, which tend to be your GECs and some of the local projects, they will not have a DBE requirement, but they're working on guidance of how to accomplish that BDI requirement. So they expect over the summer, if the governor signs it, which they expect over the summer to be issuing some guidance on how to move forward with that. So there was a meeting with the DBE subcommittee with central office last week that just happened to coincide with that bill passage. So they offered that guidance. So I just wanted to pass that along.
All right. Thank you, JW. Do you think they're the effective date of that bill is the 1st of July? Do you think they're going to have guidance out before then?
Alan, I really couldn't tell you. They have to interact with Federal Highway with the federal funding portion, and I think they want to do it in one announcement, if you will, and particularly with how to handle the state-funded business development initiatives or BDI projects. So, but that's just a guess on my part. That's not anything concrete from the department.
All right. Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Anybody else?
Alan and John, this is Kelly Cranford. Can you double check on your Senate Bill 110? Because AWWA, and from what I've been seeing, it's going to be heard in the extended session. Senator Albritton wants it there. So I don't believe it's dead, but can you double check? I mean, you've got a few weeks, but it is one of the bills that the news are saying it's still alive.
I don't believe
Yeah,
that to be true.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
The
Senator
extended-
Albritton says it is, so I just.
As
I'd
soon
like
as
to know who he told that
Senator
to.
said, yeah, as soon as the
Well, I
senator
just
or the
pulled up
speaker
4
said-
different news articles, and
Well,
Senator Albritton
they'll have to
said that
modify.
it's.
They'll have to modify the call of the session then, because it's not included in the extended session call.
Senate
That would take
Bill
an active-
110.
that take-
They are all showing that it is.
Right.
So just double check, because
All right.
Hey, this is Melissa. It was included in the original extended session call, but as soon as the Senate president announced he wouldn't consider any sales tax reductions, the House Speaker pulled it from his extended session call. So it is no longer part of the extended session call in both chambers. So it's
Thank you,
dead unless
Melissa.
they change their mind.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. Yeah, it was, and that's correct. I remember it being part of the initial call, but then the Senate president was still, very adamant that he wasn't going to do the dereg stuff. The rest of that bill was all the rural renaissance stuff that the Senate president wanted. So he wanted the bill, but he wouldn't do it with the dereg stuff in there. And I guess the speaker decided he's not going to pull that out, and so sounds like the House, at least the House, isn't going to consider it.
Yeah, and if he's talking in context of 110, I don't know. I'd have to see the quotes. I'd have to see what article you're talking about. But he was more. My guess is he's more than likely referring to his rural renaissance. But the rural renaissance stuff can essentially be done as part of the conforming bills within the context of the budget. So even though it was a standalone bill, they can still accommodate some of those policies through the budget. But again, I'm not seeing the articles, so I'd have to see what the context
It's
was.
probably like Melissa was saying, that it was part of the original and then through negotiation it was taken out. And I haven't found any articles that said that anything was amended.
Mhm.
So his sort of statement was probably with the initial.
Well, I will say this.
All
I
right.
did. I will say on the dereg stuff and the boards and FEMIC, I had a very productive meeting in the speaker's office last week with the speaker's chief of staff. And, part of what we're dealing with is they don't have, a lot of them don't have an idea regarding our scheme and our privatized board. And I think, made some headway with them in that front. And what he expressed to me was their real interest is a lot less in getting rid of the boards and a lot more about getting rid of continuing education. They feel like some of these associations and professions are making a lot of money over government mandated continuing education, and they don't feel that's the role of government to force that stuff. That professionals ought to guide themselves. I'm not defending that. I'm just expressing the verbiage that they gave to me. So they cited some, like the realtors in particular, and others that they just feel like, they've got heartburn over the CE. That's what's really driving the speaker's interest in this.
All right. Thank you, John. Thank you, Kelly. Anybody else?
Alan, Jackie Hart had a question in the chat about the small
Okay.
businesses and DBE firms. Jackie?
Yeah, I had a question. I know that now it's very difficult in the SB pool to pick from. It's usually real small, just by the nature it's a small business. And if they eliminate the DBE, many DBEs will not qualify for SB. So it concerns me if the DOT is looking to increase SB percentage, they may not be there to increase.
Jackie, that's one of the things they're wrestling with. But that's what the other hope was, by increasing that revenue ceiling from 6.5 million to 10 million, that they could expand that pool.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. Anybody else? All right. So I'm not sure, Laura. Do we need to hold another one, or should we just wait until the budget is done and we know what's in it and what isn't, and then hold a last meeting?
Entirely up to you. Next Friday coincides with Memorial Day weekend, so I don't know how many folks would be around, but certainly it's
doesn't
on the
sound like-
calendar. If you guys want to do it, it's available.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get anything done this week with the Senate not even coming back. So we wouldn't have anything new for next week, maybe the week after.
Okay. So
Okay.
we'll,
So
we'll cancel the one
yeah,
or let
let's-
everybody know it's canceled for next week, but we'll resume the following.
Right. Assuming they got something done, but, 'cause I don't want everybody calling in if we don't have anything new to report, so. But anyway, we'll go that route, and if we need to postpone it further, we can do that.
Just stay tuned to our websites, guys, for updates on whether the calls are going to be hosted or not. Please.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.